Page 3 of the Standard this morning. President defends varsity funding model, says it will help more. President William Ruto has defended the new higher education funding model, saying it will benefit more students from vulnerable backgrounds. He pointed out that the model benefits learners in public universities and in TVET institutions, government scholarships and financing from the Higher Education Loans Board. Speaking at Kabete National Polytechnic in Nairobi during the 100 years of TVET celebrations yesterday, President Ruto said there's misinformation about the funding model. He said wrong information is being given about the new funding model for the universities and TVET. He told the MPs and education officials to help educate the public on benefits of the new funding model, regretting that parents were recently misled about the fees to be paid for students joining TVET and universities. The president also announced a program to equip TVET colleges at a cost of 13 billion shillings is now complete. He thanked Germany and Canada, among other countries, for supporting tertiary education in the country for all going forward. So the conversation now is on this one. The university's funding model. This is what came out after recommendations that were presented to the president by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform, that they came up with a new model that had been discussed for a while. But then, vitu kwa ground appears to be different. We want to hear from those who are on the ground. Michael Soy is the head of public service at the University of Nairobi Students Association, and Francis Omondi is the chair of the Linda Comrades Initiative UoN chapter. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seats of the Situation Room. How does it feel? Skiaje, Francis?
Just a slight correction. I'm stepping in.
Oh, you're stepping in for Francis?
Yeah.
You know what?
Yes. So I think I'll just do the introduction.
Introduce yourself to the public.
Yes. So my name is Ramesh Saxena. I'm the Secretary General of the University of Nairobi, the Present Council. Yes.
Okay. Karibu sana Ramesh.
Asante.
Michael?
And my name is Ngetich Michael Tsoi, the head of public service, University of Nairobi Students Association.
Karibu.
Like to feel how the Situation Room can get hotter and hotter.
We will see. Karibuni sana. City, give them the day's proverb. Now listen to the proverb.
Okay. Yes. Our proverbs for this week and the coming weeks will be from landlocked countries of Africa. We had been looking at island nations of Africa in the previous weeks. And the proverb for this week have been from the Republic of Burundi. Burundi. Next week we'll be going to Botswana. Okay?
Comrades, do you know the president of Burundi?
We only know the former.
Who's the former?
The guy that died. The guy that died suddenly during the COVID period.
What was his name?
Might you know his name?
I know his name.
Okay. Somewhere. An advanced search will. Okay. The president currently is called Evariste Ndayishimiye.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the current president of Burundi. Okay. Now that was the question. Do you know what the capital of Burundi is?
It must be Bujumbura.
It must be.
It is, actually.
Well, at least you made an attempt. Bujumbura happens to be the largest city, but it is not the capital. Do not worry. Even I didn't know this before I started looking into the history of this country. Even I thought it was Bujumbura. It's called Gitega. Gitega. That is the capital. Wow. Yes. Interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting.
Very good. Now the proverb. A visible stone does not harm the hoe. Jembe.
Yes.
A visible stone does not harm the hoe. Ramesh, what's your interpretation?
Okay, that's it's a good proverb, and maybe in mentioning, I'll just say that Burundi is a very quiet country. That's why many people tend to miss so much information about it and all. Yeah. Now to this proverb, a visible stone does not harm the hoe. It's in the context of agriculture or farming. I'd assume that the person that came up with this is a farmer. You know, when you are in the farm and you see a stone and you are digging, you'll have to remove it and continue with the work. From where I sit it as in real life situation is an obstacle, an obstacle or an impediment that is before you or that you're aware of cannot really do much harm to you as a person, because you'll devise means to go about it. Yeah, so that's how I see that proverb. It's a good one. Yes.
And you, Michael?
Stone causes harm to the sharpness of the hoe. And if I'm to make a way to where you are, Eric, I can't climb on this table and come. I'll have to circumnavigate the table where we are on to get to where we are. So it's a cautionary proverb and telling us, and we've seen in the recent past in our country whereby there are visible stones, yet people still hit them with a hoe. Could this be what is happening in the universities? Let's look further into it.
To be forewarned is to be? What does it say, City?
No,
foretold.
Foretold is to be forewarned.
Yeah.
It's the other way around. It's to be foretold, is to be forewarned.
Yes. Forewarned.
Okay. Could it be what's happening in the universities? Let's get straight into it then, Michael. What is happening in the universities? Many people will be just hearing about, there's a new university funding model. There are new expectations. There are new fee structures being dished out at the university. Tell us, what's happening?
What's happening in the universities, when you talk about the funding model, when you talk about the new, we first have to consider the old. So the old model is known as differentiated unit cost, whereby the government used to give a capitation block funding to the universities. And before that, that was started in 2017. We had universities could draft their budgets, then give to the government, then the government could really give them all the amount to be able to run the university, and that is in terms of payment of the staff of the university and the workers. So since the growth of universities from the number, there were around 5 in the country, they have now ballooned to around more than 37 public universities. There have been a need to be able to relook at the way in which we are financing the universities. And that is why the communication from the Ministry of Education, the reason why we are having the new funding model is to address the challenges faced by public universities and technical and vocational education, that is TVET institution, as a result of massive enrollment. Where has this massive enrollment come from? The 100% transition, then the inadequate funding. We've been crying left, right, and center that we don't have the money. But even before the new funding model came into play, from the University of Nairobi, there was an increase of the tuition fee from 16,000 to 58,000. That is in the tuition fee, and also an increase
for which courses?
For all across, in terms of
uniformly.
That is for government-sponsored students. Then also in accommodation fee, there was an increase from 6,000 to 42,000 to be able now to curb these inadequacy of finances in the universities. So we cannot run away from that. But now, coming on to the new funding model, we haven't been engaged, or have the stakeholders been engaged in the coming up on this new funding model. We are the student leaders. We've not been called to give our input in this new funding model. Neither have our parents been called to the table to discuss about this new funding model, so that we can have a holistic discussion around this. So you'll just find that people meet in boardrooms, conferences, to ratify the decisions that they have made concerning this funding model, and then say, we have engaged with the students.
What's the new funding model?
The new funding model entails the universities being, or the universities being given funds based on the number of students. So if Soy is coming on to University of Nairobi will not be funded as a block. You will be given money based on the course that Michael Soy is pursuing, and based on the necessity of Michael Soy. Is Michael Soy vulnerable? Is he less needy? Is he able to pay the whole amount of fee, or do we need to give him a scholarship? So that is the metrics. Where I have a problem.
So now, hold on. Because we need to understand this. You guys understand it. The rest of us have just been hearing there's a new funding model, and here's the school fees. And you're told to pay hundreds of thousands. You're like, because of why? So take us through this. So you're saying the new funding model,
yes,
is looking at Michael Soy
as an individual.
As an individual. So say at the University of Nairobi, what course are you taking?
I'm taking geospatial engineering.
All right.
So let me take you a step back.
So geospatial engineering.
Yes.
Take us a step back.
Let me take you a step back. For example, for one to pursue geospatial engineering as a course, the cost of doing the entire course per academic year could span up to 400,000 Kenya shillings.
Okay.
But Michael Soy, since he's from a humble background, he cannot afford to pay that amount of 400,000. That is where now the government came in with a capitation.
So let's start from there. So we are looking at the various courses. The University of Nairobi says, for me to train a geospatial engineer, I need 400,000 shillings every year.
Yes.
And it's a 4-year program.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a 5-year program.
It's a 5-year program. Okay. And then now Michael Soy is admitted.
Yes.
Through
Exactly.
to University of Nairobi to pursue
geospatial engineering.
Bachelor's degree in geospatial engineering. Okay. The government now looks at Michael Soy.
Yes.
And says, can Michael Soy afford 400,000 shillings? If he can, let him pay.
Exactly.
If he cannot, then we start now graduating Michael Soy. To what extent he can pay?
Exactly.
Okay.
So before the new funding model, the universities could just say COOPS has placed 7,000 students to University of Nairobi for first years. And then the government is told we are placing 7,000 students. Then they give the capitation for that 7,000 students. But you'll find that the 7,000 students, perhaps some could not come to the university, perhaps change, and you find that there is money allocated to them. So what the government is trying to do, in my view, is we want to finance the student who is in class in the university. So the funding that will be coming to universities will be based on the number of students who you are having in the universities.
And the cost they're taking.
And the cost they're taking, because taking engineering will be different from taking medicine or Bachelor of Arts. So the thing, or where Michael Soy and many students have a problem is, how do we identify and know that Michael Soy is vulnerable, yet Ramesh Saxena isn't vulnerable, so that it can imply who gets 100% scholarship, who gets 70, who gets 30, and who pays the whole amount.
Okay. What does the policy of the government say on identification of vulnerability, Ramesh?
I think I'll also try to weigh in on this issue of the new funding model. Yeah, because I understand that some days ago, the CEO of the university funding, Geoffrey Monari, was here, and he was trying to take you guys through the process of the funding. And even in his speech or in his discussion here, he mentioned about a group, the vulnerable, who he said that for them, the household will not pay a cent. But if you go to the ground, you'll be told that these vulnerable students still pay. And you'll also be told that there has been a revision on how this new funding model or the formula works, because in the beginning we only knew categories. We had, the vulnerable, the extremely needy, very needy, less needy. But then now we have things called bands. So students are placed in, band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4, band 5, according to the level of your need. And you get that band 1, which are the vulnerable now, are supposed to being given 70% scholarship from the government. They're being given 25% help loan, and then the household contribution is 5% fees. So this information really contradicts the information that the CEO came here and talked about. And when we were starting the show, you read the paper, and it was saying that the president says that there's a lot of misinformation going around about this new model, which was rolled out in 2023, in fact. And if 1 year down the line the president is still saying that there is misinformation, then really we have to ask ourselves, whose fault is it? Is it the fault of the public, or is it the fault of those that are responsible for?
Okay, Ramesh.
Yeah. Yes.
So let's start with band. So band 1 is what is known as the vulnerable.
Yes.
What does vulnerable mean?
Okay, the vulnerable, as it just says, is someone in the society that does not have the capability to raise.
So let's say an orphan.
Yeah, an orphan, a
Okay.
total orphan that has, no parents, no guardian.
That's vulnerable.
Yes.
And now in this new categorization, they're called Band 1.
Yes, they are band 1.
And Band 1 is then entitled to get 70% scholarship from the government.
Yes, from the government.
And this one is free money. You shall not repay.
Yes, you shall not repay.
25% loan from the Higher Education Loans Board.
Yes.
You shall repay.
You shall repay.
And then there is a 5%
Fees from
from
the
household.
Yes.
Does this vulnerable work on a household? Okay, anyway, so there's a 5%
Good question.
to come from the
Yes.
individual to
Yes.
pay.
Yeah. Then
The next band,
I think an addition to that, in addition to that breakdown, there's also the side of upkeep, what they call boom from help. So for band 1, you'll be given 60,000 shillings as upkeep, which is a loan as well.
60,000 per.
A year.
per year.
Yes.
But this is now coming from HELB,
Yeah.
which you will repay.
Yeah, you'll have
Okay.
to repay.
For Band 2,
Yes.
let's go for Band 2. What do you get in terms of scholarship?
So band 2, which are said to be extremely needy, you get scholarship of 60%, HELB loan of 30%, household contribution of 10% fees, then HELB upkeep, you get around 55,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Band 3,
So for band 3,
these are what?
these are
Very
needy.
Needy.
Yes.
Okay.
So they'll pay 50%, they'll get 50% scholarship, 30% loan, household pays 20% fees, then upkeep it's 50,000.
Okay. Band 4,
Then we have band 4. Band 4 is less needy, scholarship of 40%, HELB loan of 30%, and household contribution 30%.
okay.
Then upkeep of 45,000. Then the last band is band 5, which is a new category. They get a scholarship of 30%, HELB loan of 30%, and household contribution of 40%. Then they get an upkeep of 40,000.
40,000.
Yes.
So everybody here must pay something from their pocket.
Yes. Everyone
Everybody.
pays.
If you're categorized as number 5, what are we calling them?
Number 5, it's
needy at all.
It's a new category.
Can
I
afford.
think, they are able.
Okay,
students.
able. Let's
Yes,
just,
yes,
for
they
purposes
are
of this
able.
conversation, we say able.
Yes.
So the able will pay 40% of their fee, and the fee here will depend on the course that
On
you
the
take.
course that you do. Yes.
Okay. And then the less needy, 30% out of pocket for their fee.
For them, yeah.
Where is the issue then here?
Okay. Now, one, the issue about the new funding model, as my good friend Michael Soy said, first is the means testing instrument that even the president speaks about. You see, there's a big problem at our institutions because one, you can find a child of someone working in the government, a senior officer in the government, and the child of a local farmer being placed in the same band. And you are being told that these people have equal capacity.
Are all
to pay these
needy.
fees. Yes. So there's really a problem in placing our students.
How do you get into this mean testing instrument?
So there's a...
How do you get there? Do you apply? Do you fill out a form? Do you get visitation? Do you go to your local chief?
How is it useful in this entire exercise?
Okay, there's a website where the students go and make applications.
Okay.
Like someone does the HELB application. So there's another website.
So there's a separate website, not the HELB application site.
Yeah, it is a separate.
It's a separate one.
For higher education funding.
Okay.
Yeah, so you go, you input your details. And from the details that you place there, they'll assess you. Then
are you required to provide any accompanying affidavit?
Yes. You are able to.
So, for example, what do they ask for?
It's safe that because I have nimekuja na evidence kwa karatasi.
Hiyo ndio important.
Yes. Okay.
Wamekuja na kanta, wametoa mabox.
Yes.
Mingi.
Iko na evidence.
Evidence.
Yes. So
Zeka mago.
yeah. So I think I'll just go through. Yeah. I think I have mine. So
Let me see that one, Michael.
Oh yeah, you can have that. Let me just pass it. It's okay. Yeah, so on that, you can see the eligibility is for the students that did their KCSE in 2022 onwards.
Okay.
Yes, and the application requirements include a valid email address, a valid telephone number that is registered in your name as a student, KCP and KCSE index number and the year of examination, a passport size photo, a copy of national ID for loan applications. And they say that students without a national ID can apply for scholarship.
Okay.
Then you need a college or university admission letter. You need your birth certificate, your parents or guardian registered telephone number, your parents or guardian's ID, death certificate if there is any, 2 parents or guardian's ID number and registered telephone number for loan application, and copy of sponsorship letter if you are sponsored in secondary school.
Okay.
Yes, so we can see from this kind of information that is needed for this system, it's like these people, if they ask you for the details of your parents, they're trying to gauge, how much do your parents earn in a year and all that.
How will they get that information?
Because they have KRA numbers and everything, it is assumed.
Are you asked to give the KRA number of your parents?
Yeah.
It is not part of this.
You just give your ID.
Yes.
Yes.
The ID.
You give your ID or your parents' ID?
Your parents' ID.
The parents'
Parent
ID.
or guardian's ID.
No, ID will be able to give you a lot of information.
But but okay. So if everybody will have all these documents.
Yes.
Okay, well, apart from those that have both parents, so you don't have the death certificate.
Yes.
So let's say, of course, you'll have all of you, whether you're in category 1 or 5, you'll have an email address, you'll have a valid telephone, you'll have a KCP, KCSE, you'll have a passport size photo, you'll have a copy of your national ID, you'll have a college university admission, you'll have your birth certificate, you'll have your guardian or parents registered telephone number, you'll have your parents or guardian's ID number, you'll have, now, orphans will have a death certificate of any of the parent who's deceased.
Yes.
And that's therefore not necessarily an orphan. 2 parent or guardian's ID numbers and registered telephone number. So 2 parents or 2 guardians.
Yes.
Okay. And a copy, if you got a sponsorship in secondary school, you attach a copy of that sponsorship.
Yes.
Now, sponsorship does not include CDF bursaries and all. Do you get a certificate when you get bursary from CDF?
You don't really.
Do you get a certificate when you get when Uncle CT pays for your school fees?
It does not. Even for Harambes, we do not really.
Even for any Harambee that you've done, you don't get.
You studied through Harambes.
So the only way you'll get a copy of a sponsorship letter is if you went back to a sponsor.
Yes.
To actually now tell them, please, just write for me a letter. Which means that anybody can then go and have a sponsorship letter.
Yeah.
And they'll attach. Okay.
What if you have been educated through a bursary? How do you document this?
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the problem now.
So unless you go back to your CDF committee and ask them for a letter indicating, because they are not asking for a copy of a check from CDF. It's copy of sponsorship letter if you were sponsored in secondary school.
And usually that sponsorship also is accompanied by an application. People don't go around hawking bursaries.
They're not asking for the application.
Yeah, but then, so what are they?
And the point I'm making is
I've got you.
that you can come to CT and say, CT, unitengenezee barua.
Yeah, you know.
Or I can even write a letter and purport to be the sponsor and attach.
Yes.
So anybody can attach all these documents here.
Anybody can.
This is then used to means test and tell who is extremely needy, who is less needy, who is able.
Yeah. And
how does the university's fund then tell?
Yeah, and that is where the problem lies.
Okay.
Because most of the noise that comes from the student is that people feel like the bands in which they are placed are not really where they are rightfully supposed to be. And another thing, the ministry speaks about the process of appeal. That if you are placed in band 3 and you feel like you're supposed to be in band 1, you can appeal and be placed in band 1. But our question is, if 70% of the people that are served by this system need to appeal, do we go through appeal process or do we change this means testing? And that is a very big problem.
So the challenge that has been raised here is how you placed me in band 3 while I feel I should have been in band 2.
Yes.
That's a complaint, but there's an even bigger issue.
Yeah. And I think I'll go through these issues because now we are speaking for students and we are speaking for the parents of the students. The first issue is policy communication. Yeah, because even up to now, no one really has a grasp of this funding model. And education is the only sector that touches the majority of Kenya's population. And if we control a model that the people don't understand, then it means that we are not really serious as a nation. Number one issue that we have was stakeholder engagement. When this model was rolled out, most of the public, just heard that we have a new funding model in town. No one was really taught about this. And I'll point out to an interesting issue. When these students have issues with their, fee payment and band placement and everything, when they go to most of the administrators in the university, let's say that your course costs about 300,000, and let's just say you are in a band 2, and you go to inquire that the fees that I'm supposed to pay reflects 250,000. What do I do? In an ideal situation where this model was, everyone had a grasp of this model, the administrator is supposed to tell the student that as a household, your parents are just supposed to pay 30% of this 250,000. Then the government will give you a scholarship of about 60% of this. Then you'll be given a loan of this. But a student goes and the administrator tells them, oh, you have 250,000 reflected in your portal, you have to pay that amount. Yeah. So
the administrator is not saying I'm expecting to receive 60% of these from the government and 30% of this from HELB, and you only give me X. So you're given the full fee.
They have no information about this at all.
Okay.
And we tried to engage.
Is it because they have not been told this?
There was no training for the administrators. We went to the ministry, and the ministry was telling us that according to their plan, every public institution that have students who are under this new funding model are supposed to have a desk for university funding, where the students that have issues are supposed to be helped. We were many of us, the student leaders, and they were asked, is there anyone in this room whose institution has
a desk
that
has university fund people? And
there was not a single institution.
None.
Not a single institution.
Okay, I assume the next place you went to is the university's fund itself.
Yeah, and then we come to the university, and the students, the first years from 2022, they're the people that are most affected by this funding model.
Why?
and they have no idea.
Why are they most affected?
Because the rolling out started with them.
So they're going to be the ones who are going to bear the brand.
Yeah, they bear the brand, and their parents.
Which raises the question, those who are already in the institution, how does then this new model apply to them? Because they're already in the process of learning anyway.
3rd years, 4th years.
Yes, so.
They're untouched. Because as we said, the eligibility for this funding model is that only candidates who start their KCSE examination in 2022 onwards.
Okay. We are having a conversation with 2 university students, Michael Sori and Ramesh Saxena. We are talking about the university's funding and the issues around university's funding. The president says there's a lot of misunderstanding in this, and he has tasked MPs and universities to make sure that there's more increased awareness. But it should start with just basically the institutions themselves understanding. So many of these students are basically just being given a fee structure, and you're told this is how much your course costs, and we expect you to raise the fees.
Yes.
So what are they doing thereafter? Are they coming to you as student leaders? What are they doing?
There has been a lot of pressure on the student leaders. People saying that now we really do not have a voice, and no one is really filling the voice of the students. And they are right in whatever they say, because our agitation levels are low now. And you've asked me what the students are doing. There are so many WhatsApp groups of the 2022 cohort, that are forming forces to rally against this new funding model. Even presently, I'm in a WhatsApp group of more than 800 students, and they're saying that come September, they'll have to occupy the Ministry of Education. And I just have to say here categorically that if our students come and they want to occupy Jogo House or the Ministry of Education, I shall be there to take them. Yeah, because these are the main stakeholders. And if they cannot be heard in an issue that touches them directly, then it is our responsibility as student leaders, to speak for them. And I just want to point out something. The president, while speaking in the town hall in Mombasa, was speaking about his openness to engage student leaders on this issue of the funding model. But this will not be the first engagement. Early in the year, the ministry called the student leaders to a convention in Naivasha. And the whole purpose of that meeting was to discuss the new funding model. The student leaders went to Naivasha, but the very people that called this meeting did not show up.
What do you mean?
They did not show up. In May.
Okay,
How did they invite the student leaders?
Let's rewind this thing a
You're
little bit.
Secretary General
Yes.
at UoN. Were you invited?
Yes, we were invited.
How did you get the invitation?
Through the vice chancellors.
So the vice chancellor of your university of Nairobi told you that you've been invited.
Yes.
Was it a letter or was it called you to the office and told you, Ramesh?
Unafanya nini siku hii? Kuja.
In fact, it was a letter from the ministry instructing the vice chancellors to facilitate the student leaders to go to a meeting, a consultative meeting to Naivasha.
Okay.
Yes, reaching Naivasha, the main stakeholders in the ministry were absent, and they said that they had other issues.
Who came?
Secretaries.
What is secretary?
What do you mean secretaries?
There was no PS, there was no CS.
Who came?
Okay.
The Secretary for Higher Education.
Some guys.
Secretary for Higher Education is actually
a fairly senior official.
Very senior person.
Or
no,
what do you expect?
No,
let's start there.
This is the issue. This is the issue. If a cabinet secretary calls me, a student leader, to Naivasha to discuss the issues of students, then I expect the cabinet secretary to be there. If you are busy on that day, you should have rescheduled. Otherwise, we didn't ask for that meeting. We did not go to the ministry and said, on 25th May, call us, we come, we discuss. The ministry wrote a letter to the school and said, on 25th May, come, send your students, we'll have a discussion. Then we go and find that you have other engagement. What other engagements are more important than the issues of the students? It does not make sense.
Is your problem the person who came, or is there a problem? Because if
the ministry was represented,
and you can come
was
in,
it not?
Let me just come in.
If the secretary, because there are all those departments, so there's a secretary for basic education.
Yes.
There's a secretary for higher education at the ministry.
Yes.
Those are the people who actually run those areas, right?
Yes.
The PS is the accounting officer, but the person who actually understands the running of this thing is the secretary.
If a
secretary has come, surely.
Let me just inject.
Okay, inject.
If you called me to a meeting and you said that you will have, because every meeting has the people that are expected at the place, and you tell me that you are going to be there, and I come and you are not there, what do you mean?
Ramesh, if say for instance you had sent your assistant or deputy, PA,
and the CS came.
Yes.
Surely, would you not be represented by your PA or assistant?
Let us look into the pertinent issues here. Apart from the funding model, because we are student leaders, there are many other things that are affecting the students. And we started by saying stakeholder engagement. The other issues which affect us as students include poor sanitation in the halls of residence, student progression, students association, budget, auditing of the same, student ID cards, whereby, for example, University of Nairobi pay 1,000 Kenya shillings. They have never been printed.
For an ID.
They have never been printed since 2021. The insurance for our buses are in third party. Yesterday, there was a test buy of a school bus, and students were there to change the tire themselves. There have been lack of fuel for our universities. And these issues we've raised with the Ministry of Education through a memoranda, and they haven't been addressed. When we got to the governance of the university, that is the student council, we issued our agenda, including those things to the administration of the day. But now, this has not been heeded onto when we ask for it as we go along. That is why when we were having a break, I asked CT Muga, are we having this leaning on the wrong, on the ladder leaning on the wrong wall? Because there is a big crisis in the public universities, and having heard, I've tried to research, and I came here with a few documents concerning the whole running of this issue and where the problem is. Recently, you've been hearing on debates on social media and also on television screens that there is a leadership crisis or wrangles in the University of Nairobi. And that is not the case.
What is the case?
The case is there are some leaders in the University of Nairobi and the substantive vice chancellor, to be specific, who are not adhering to the Constitution of Kenya and the various circulars that are given by the government and the head of public service, the Charter of the University of Nairobi 2013, Universities Act of 2012, and Mwongozo, that is the Code of Governance for State Corporation. And then now they come around propagating propaganda to disrupt the whole system. And when we now start talking about the funding model, it's one aspect of the things that we are facing in the university. Then there is a whole lot of other things. For example, when students will be coming in September and August on August first years, the hostels, oh my goodness, they are in a very dilapidated state, despite having had renovations taking place, of which we do not see the value for the money that is being given. And because I have the report of the Auditor General, the thing that I was keen to note, item number 4.2 was told student accommodation hostels in Lower Kabete. When we move on, we have an overpayment for non-working borehole in Kikuyu campus that leading to uncleanliness. And when we move on, because I highlighted things that are
overpayment for non-working borehole.
Let me just read you, Eric, so that you can understand the plight where we're coming from. The audit report reveals that in 2022, the borehole only pumped water once for 20 minutes and then stopped. Further information...
So what was the problem? Was it the borehole or the pump?
Okay, further information indicated that the borehole sealed was inadequate for pumping. The next thing is, in addition, this schedule indicates the payment of the project amounting to 3.8 million and overpayment of 1.3. The governance of the universities. And that is where now we should come and discuss what is the governance structure of the university. We have the council, we have the senate, and we have the university management board. The council is the employer of all the staff and all the employees in the university. But we've seen blatantly people disobeying these are directives from the council. We've seen communications from the council of the university asking the vice chancellor of the University of Nairobi, Professor Kiama, to proceed on leave. But he's still there. So if we have people who shouldn't be office still masquerading, serving, and usurping the mandate and disrupting the meeting of the council of the university by purporting that they are the secretary to the council. According to Mwongozo Code of Conduct, the secretary to the board or the council is a corporate secretary who should be a lawyer. In University of Nairobi, we have a director of legal affairs services who should be the corporate secretary. But because the vice chancellor is the ex-official member of the council, they purport that I'm the one to call for a meeting for the council to meet. The vice chancellor, Professor Stephen Kiama, is an employee of the council. And then now when council wants to meet, for example, to discipline him, because we know he's been issued a show cause letter for various misdeeds in the university. But now the council cannot meet because he's saying that I am the one to call the meeting. So how do you call the meeting that is supposed to discipline you? The other thing which is important to know...
You don't have hearing you say that you have a lame duck council.
I'm coming there. I'm getting there, CT.
Okay.
And I have some documents here.
Please proceed.
That gets us there. So the question is, the council communicates on 19th. Let me just get you the exact dates. It communicates on 19th of April 2022, saying that they have sent Professor Stephen Kiyama on leave 60 days because according to the contract that he signed, he has 45 annual days in a year, 45 leave days, and he's not allowed to accumulate more than 90. As we talk, he has accumulated over 172. The council appoints an acting vice chancellor, but the substantive come to office and throws them away. It has happened twice. Professor Ogengo Julius, the DVCAA, and Professor Ayub Gitau. So when we talk about these issues that are affecting us at the universities, they are way much bigger than what we want to see.
Okay.
So the question
Michael,
we are trying to ask
were you in office when the Presidential Task Force Working Party group, what was it? The Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms.
Yes.
When it was collecting submissions, did you present memoranda to them?
The start, Eric, we said we've not been involved. If it's stakeholder engagement, let them call us to Taifa Hall.
Did you?
Or Manu Chandare.
Wait. The Presidential Working Party went across the country.
Wapi?
Across the country, bwana.
Si kama ni Taifa Hall, utaona watu walikuwa
Not Taifa Hall. You see, they were not only dealing with the University of Nairobi. They went across the country and collecting views of everybody.
Yes.
Did you?
As a stakeholder.
We weren't given an
stakeholders.
opportunity. That is where we started from.
They announced where they were going.
But if we did not see them at the University of Nairobi, then which University of Nairobi?
Where were they?
No,
Or tell me, Eric.
They were not looking at university.
Okay.
It is education.
Education
Yes.
all over.
You see? There are many universities in Nairobi.
Yes.
Where were they?
There are many TVETs in Nairobi.
Yes.
Yes.
There are many primary and secondary schools in Nairobi. They did not go to only schools. They went to places where all these people could come. Did you,
Where?
as leadership of the university,
Where
so
did
the yes
where
or no?
did they go?
So here we are hearing you saying no.
No.
That at no point did you write or visit or physically meet with the working party
No,
to
we-
present a memorandum.
Okay, let me add, just to conclude what I'm saying is, the council is the employer. But where the problem is, when you hear the term professor, it seems you start trembling or something.
I'm hearing all these things. You know, I'm trying to get to, because we're coming to the end.
Okay.
I'm hearing all these issues that you're raising.
Wh-
And
wh-
they're
wh-
valid.
When we get,
They're valid.
When we get the
So
engagement,
the question I'm asking is, as the leadership
Yes.
of the students of the University of Nairobi, how far have you gone towards seeking the solution to this? Have you presented
you
this?
have it.
I have the letters here that you've written, and you wrote them in July this year.
Yes.
These problems are not July problems.
On March, when we got to power,
You had
senior leadership, we raised with the administration of the university. They don't listen. They don't. And we thank the media because they're giving us an opportunity. The
Okay.
people can hear these things.
So
And
now
then
coming
we can-
back to our main topic, which was on universities funding, which is cross-cutting. It's not only affecting
University of Nairobi.
or only universities, it also goes across to TVETs, and there are millions who are affected by this, right? What do you propose as a way forward, as a solution to this, Ramesh?
Okay, there was a point that I was making that you cut me short. I'll just be brief on it. You see, I was talking about engagement, which is also agitating about. You see, my point was that not that these people did not come, but the main issue was that despite them not showing up, the student leaders showed up actually and gave their views. It was student leaders drawn from all public, private, and TVETs across Kenya. You know, they gave their views, and that was it. After that, we did not hear a word of that. And when the president was addressing the nation on this matter, new funding model, he kept speaking about his meeting with the vice chancellor. But we are asking ourselves, where is the voice of the students in this? So the ministry has called for another meeting like that. It will be at Kenya Institute of Special Education. But from where we sit, we see that the ministry is calling for this specific meeting to try and pacify the student leaders and to try to avert the crisis that is coming in September. Because the students are saying in one voice that come September, they are going to occupy every city.
So will you attend the meeting?
I shall go to the meeting.
He said he will lead them. He was
Okay.
very specific.
Not the
Yeah.
occupation.
We are saying
the
that
meeting at the
yes,
Kenya Institute for Special Education.
my take as a student leader is that I shall agitate where agitation is necessary, and I shall occupy where occupation is necessary.
Okay.
When the ministry calls me to go and have dialogue, I shall go. So that when they do not implement whatever I told them, when I occupy, I'll tell them, we told you so, and what did you do?
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
And to the question that you asked, because we are not just here to complain. As leaders, it is our responsibility to agitate and represent the voices of our people. But it is also our responsibility to provide solutions to the society.
This conversation is incomplete. We need to invite this fine gentleman to come back again.
We've just scratched the surface.
Yes, so let's give them even 2 hours so that other people can also call in, because there are other people who are listening, the people whom you lead.
Yep.
Can I give a parting shot?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you so much for hosting us here. And at least we've gotten to start the conversation and scratching. It's just the height of the iceberg is the tip. And now, because time is really running and September is coming and universities are not working, it will be basically what Gen Zs did for the dropping of the finance bill, disbandment of the cabinet will happen. And we shall occupy, and our students will get accommodation in University of Nairobi Towers, those good offices. It can accommodate 40 bed capacity. So that is where they will sleep.
So the government should look and see that there's a rock. Yes. And they should protect the whole.
Yes.
Asante sana. Student leaders Michael Sori and Ramesh Saxena from the University of Nairobi. They've been our guests. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a lovely day.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.